So in this document, citizenship of the United States, exploration, etc., dealing with Morocco, which keep in mind that is connected, like you just read it, y'all. Most people read in the book, Article 4, Section 1, full faith and credit. This is in that realm. It's a public act, congressional record, has full faith and credit. Why can you utilize this? To substantiate your position on your status based on competency of what happened with your ancestry, your people, and the United States government. So in this document, it talks about how, well, let me just read. There are strictly speaking no Moroccan laws relating to citizenship of Moorish subjects in Morocco. The fundamental laws of this non-Christian country are based entirely upon Islamic code, no part of which treats of the subject of citizenship. There are, however, numerous treaties and conventions between the various Christian countries and the Moorish Empire, by means of which citizenship in this country is defined. But as I understand from the above acknowledged instructions, that is not the desire of the department to call for a report upon such lines. I will therefore confine these remarks to general conditions existing, which may possibly be of some use in connection with the information desired. Citizenship in Morocco may be said to be governed by the laws pertaining to the same in other countries, with the exception that all persons residing in Morocco who cannot prove foreign citizenship or protection are considered ipso jure Moorish subjects. Moorish subjects lost their nationality only by becoming naturalized in or protected by another country having treaty relations with the Moorish Empire. So, we read a lot here. Some may have even read this document before. But we want to have clarity on why this is important as a document. And when we're waking our people up, to show them that this is not a game. This is congressional record showing our nationality of people in the perspective of government on American soil. Congressional records, receipts, proof. What are some of the highlights? For one, that even people that think they're black, Negro, color, which is not a nationality, which means they can't prove foreign citizenship or protection, they automatically more subjects. That's one highlight. Two is stating that our people lost their nationality under the 14th Amendment. When you look, because it said Moorish subjects lost their nationality only by becoming naturalized. What is naturalized? Naturalized, distinguished from being nationalized, naturalized under the 14th Amendment, which you're saying you a corporate citizen. You, right? You belong to a corporate state. You don't want to have any national allegiance. And if a human being belongs to a corporate state, you either work for the corporation as a federal officer, or if you don't work for in that capacity, but you're still saying you're a citizen, you're incompetent. And that makes you a minority and a ward of the corporate state. So that's how we lost our nationality. So here is, within this congressional record, a couple articles from different bodies of law This one being the Convention of Madrid, which was July 3rd, 1880. Article 15 of that document states, any subject of Morocco who has been naturalized in a foreign country and who shall return to Morocco shall, after having remained for a length of time equal to that which shall have been regularly necessary for him to obtain such naturalization, choose between entire submission to the laws of the empire and the obligation to quit Morocco, unless it shall be proved that his naturalization in a foreign country was obtained with his consent. Consent of the government of Morocco. So anything outside of, and that's another reason why it's imperative why we create body politics, we stay have an allegiance and have it grow, because we're talking about the ability to grant citizenship now. In a like I say, it could be Albion that pledge allegiance. We naturalize him, makes him ipso jure naturalized citizen. We give him, he's a Moroccan citizen. He paying dues. He's spreading this information, uplifting acts. He an ambassador, missionary for the cause. We can, he's a Moroccan citizen. But it went through a republic process, organic process, right? That's why it's imperative on another level to organize, stay solid as an organization, as a nation state, as a clan. Foreign naturalization heretofore acquired by subjects of Morocco according to the rules established by the laws of each country shall be continued to them as regards all its effects without any restriction. So in our case, we got treaties on top of treaties. Because remember, it's treaties before the. I know most of us know about the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, but before anything was called the United States, we had Britain, different European crowns that the empire had treaties with. That's why I say treaties on top of treaties. Oh, what I'm getting at is by the United States being a corporate state, the British is controlling that, right? So, or they'll say Rome, like right now, District of Columbia, headquarters of the United States, federal corporation, right? That's a Roman jurisdiction. Because we know in our lessons that when you're dealing with Columbia, you're dealing with the Roman goddess. And, prior to it being a corporate state via the Act of 1871, there was still the EU, the European Union, various Europeans that formed a union and declared their independence from their sovereign powers. Once they did that, they entered into a treaty with the home team, the Moors, via a relationship with our Sultan, to discuss treaty negotiations, right? So all this is competency. When we talking to people that's not dealing with this information, we need to be able to talk to them with a sound mind. Because remember, an unsound mind makes you classified minority. So we want to know the contrast. Transitioning to the congressional record, another congressional record. Keep in mind, while we're going over this res judicata, stare decisis, full faith and credit protected literature today. So this congressional record dealing with the Senate, 64th Congress, first session, volume 53, part 7, page 6787. In this document, it talks about a treaty called the Secret Treaty of Verona. So one of the elements is it throws a powerful white light upon the conflict between the monarchical government and the government by the people. The government by the people would be what you call a republic, form of government, distinguished from a democracy. So when we're dealing with the Secret Treaty of Verona, in Article 1 of that document, highlights to use all efforts to put an end to the system of representative governments in whatever country it may exist in Europe, and to prevent it from being introduced into those countries where it is not yet known. So the Secret Treaty of Verona is an attempt to stop republics, to stop organization of people, of their own people. Rather, it don't matter what nationality of people you are. Their aim, if they can have it in a perfect world for them, they don't want nobody working with each other, just pledging pledging allegiance to the corporate state or Roman culture, which is just followership, dumb you down. Basically, you're just cattle. But of course, the will of the people is stronger than that energy. That's why I always like going back to the Chinatown, Koreatown, or any town analogy. When people working together, the quality of life is better. It don't matter what evil is going on by the corporate states around and all that. We know what's going on, the genocide principles. But you see the differences though when people work together and honor their mothers and fathers. But nonetheless, we're still going over congressional records to show the intentions of these people and who we're dealing with. So we can this is all when we trying to wake our people up. Remember, these are tools. This is, like I say, this is the dojo. We all Moors that woke up at different time frames. Everybody's not brand new. But every week it might be somebody new that comes in. And we just want to, be our brother's keeper and break down the fundamentals for him. But essentially, we keeping this stuff in the forefront of our mind so we sharp. So when we're not in these temple settings, when we're talking to our people to wake them up, we have different things in our conscious and subconscious mind to give them tools to show them why they need to be part of this force field. They'll be in a great addition. So Article 2 of the Secret Treaty of Verona, as it cannot be doubted that the liberty of the press is the most powerful means used by the pretended supporters of the rights of nations to the detriment of those princes, the high contracting parties promise reciprocally to adopt all proper measures to suppress it. So another bullet point is suppress the press. Suppress the press. What is the press? Literature that any people, in our case, literature for our people's salvation, to get the word out of what's really going on around here. So they can have something to compare to versus the propaganda media outlets of what's going on around here in the world, what's going on politically around the world, right? We got to give them something to compare to so they know this even exists. There's a lot of our people that don't even know that this paradigm exists. This would be brand new information to them. I know we get jaded over the years, like, oh man, our people ain't gonna wake up. But hey, I'm telling you, when you're dealing with people on a daily, you're going to see it's a lot of different mind frames out there. And it's a lot of misconceptions that you might have on people. And people receptive to this information, especially if you come, with a sound mind, delivering it to them in such a way as a noble, a scholar, right? They're going to be impressed. Like, oh man, this guy's so smart. I'm intrigued. Are you a historian, huh? Are you a lawyer? Like, you get all type of stuff, man. But it's a beautiful space to be in, man. It's, so now you can be optimistic on what you can do as the creator, you know? So they try to suppress the press. That's the bottom line in this context. So it's imperative for us to, everybody in an individual capacity, write at least one book, for the purpose of pushing the info in a literary form. Because they're gonna try to suppress it. So Article 3, convince the principles of religion contribute most powerfully to keep nations in a state of passive obedience. So as you can see in this document, they want to use religion to keep people passive, use it in a way to keep people passive and have an obedient mind. That's called docile. Offering their thanks to the Pope, right? In this system, isn't the Pope like the head guy? Every time he comes, they shutting down the freeway. Might be some show you watching on TV, you get interrupted. Breaking news. The Pope has, you know what I mean? So, Secret Treaty of Verona. All right. Note, any and all churches, mosques, synagogues, schools, etc., claiming to be nonprofit and the pastor, minister, rabbi, sheikh has a certificate from the corporate state, then they are a 501c3. No human can grant another human the authority to teach the word of God. Clearly, if they do, they are teaching a version and ameliorating their own interests. Yeshua said they will declare themselves God of the earth, etc. Remember, a license is a permissive privilege. One who can say who can and can't teach the word. That's a question. The Almighty never said who can and who can't. Nature is based on merit. What is merit? Works, facts, factual things, things that are concrete. Even when God chose David to be king, he had to prove himself, and the people still had to vote, choose, elect him. That is nature's law, and the creator does not violate her own law. So why are these pastors, ministers, rabbis, chiefs, etc.? And it was a paraphrase, but basically violating the law. Basically, for example, what that was alluding to, if you go to church, the pastor wasn't like elected to be a pastor. Like, right, we got two different styles of government. All right. So and this for Brother Randolph, a 501c3 is typically what a lot of these churches, mosques are under. And so they're regulated. They might tell them to shut down because of COVID. They got to shut down or getting threatened to get their charter revoked by the state. So just in case you wasn't familiar with that. Article 5, still dealing with the Secret Treaty of Verona. In order to establish in the peninsula the order of things which existed before the revolution of Cadiz. So now, in this document, we're going into like Arabian Peninsula, which now, called Spain. after 1492, it got, shut down and converted to a different jurisdiction. But it was another revolution called the Revolution of Chadiz, which kind of disrupted things over there again. And that's why they're saying restore order, reestablish order. Let me let this brother in. Let me just show you the Battle of Chadiz, just in case anybody's not familiar with that. Anybody familiar with the Battle of Chadiz? Oh, brother, Dickens Bay, Islam, peace and love, man.
I haven't got to that personally.
Let me just look it up. I thought I had it. Brother Robert Dickens Bay, peace and love, man. How you feeling out there?
I'm well, Grand Sheik. How you feeling?
Oh, all is well, man. I'm just gonna look it up. I thought I had it queued up. The Battle of Chadiz. So essentially, it was some of our people that had a revolution out there. And that was my whole point. I don't want to get too lost and drift off on the context and the flow of the curriculum for today. But y'all can look that up on your own time and analyze that. You're going to see it's an indigenous aspect of our people and what they call Spain today that had an uproar and a revolution. So that's my whole point. So Article 5 in the Treaty of Verona is they want to establish order in the peninsula, in that area, to things that existed before the revolution of Cadiz. All right. And to ensure the entire execution of the articles of the present treaty, the high contracting parties give to each other the reciprocal assurance that as their views are not fullified, rejecting all other ideas of utility or other measures to be taken, they will address themselves with the shortest possible delay to all authorities existing in their states and to all their agents in foreign countries with the view to establish connections tending toward the accomplishments of the objects proposed in this treaty. So any republics attempt to undermine them, send agents in there to disrupt it, and because we're dealing with North America, that's how they use the treaty in North America through the CIA and FBI, as far as boots on the ground. And then, of course, the fraternities and the precincts and stuff like that. And, of course, the judicial system, right? The DAs these are all their foot soldiers to implement this. I think I'm gonna go straight into this other measure. We pretty much went over this particular group today, went over Christian black codes already. I'm not going to assume, no, brother Randolph. You pretty clear on Christian black codes, distinguishing that jurisdiction from a jurisdiction that the Constitution and treaties apply to?
Yeah.
Got that? Okay. Yeah, I figured that. Brother Robbins Dickens Bay, you play on the Christian Black Code, right? I don't need to go over that, do I?
Islam. I'm pretty clear with that.
All right. Cool. So I'm gonna get to my next measure. All right, so we're gonna deal with a state law, mortgage fraud, feudal system. So when we're dealing with a mortgage, and keep this in mind, this, the last 7 weeks, we've been going over like a build up. We've been talking about trust. We talk about, what it takes to be a citizen, the allegiance aspect of nationality and citizen. So once you get competent in that information, the basics, and certain things in principle and law, as a body, you would challenge things in law or make notice. What I mean by that, or make a claim. All these are synonymous. So as an operating body over months and years, we're growing its ambassadorship, we're growing economically, body count wise, and competent wise. It's gonna come a point where, we got 100,000 in the treasury. We see this land. We see abandoned. It could be abandoned property. We just see land, raw land, etc. As a body, we make a claim on that as a nation state, this abandoned property. So we put it on the public record that, it's being conveyed in trust through a temple, through a nation state, through a body of Moors. You put that on the public record. We also put on a public record that we looked up the last owner of a record. At the city, you can do these things at the county level, at the county clerk's office. Once we notify these people, let them know that we're putting them on notice of what we're doing and giving them a chance to rebut the principles and law that we're making our claim in. They don't do that. That gets put on the public record. What also gets put on the public record is the fact that there's a property being conveyed into a trust. What is the trust? The organization, i.e. the temple, the body. All right. When we draft our writs, is certain elements or language we're going to use to substantiate our position on why it's in trust. Or if, in this case, we'll have to go over a mortgage. Say one of our people had a mortgage that's going into foreclosure. We want to know how to create writs to substantiate the point on why it was fraud, why you didn't get no consideration. Why is the mortgage a fraud? You can't just say that it's a fraud. Do you know why it's a fraud? Can you express why it's a fraud eloquently? All right. I just wanted to say that before I continue with the definition of mortgage, or dealing with the mortgage right now. General. So a mortgage, as defined in Henry Campbell's Black's Law Dictionary, is merely a lien, and it does not create title to an estate. Easily put, if you get a mortgage, this does not mean you own the home. The same stands true to the deed of trust. This also does not mean you own the estate. The word deed simply means action, and a trust is an abstract noun, being an idea is placed on paper, as the mortgage and promissory note, which is to remain private, is supposed to be reflected in the deed of trust, because that's the name of the mortgage. All mortgages are called deed of trust when you look them up on a public record. To ensure private information is not revealed to the public, of course, just because things should be a certain way does not mean people will do it the correct way. These reigns true in the fact that you and others have the right to contract. So, if you wish to do it incorrectly or pursuant to feudal law, you are well within your right, just as if you were contracting pursuant to common law or constitutional law, you will be well within your right, i.e., slavery is a choice, as stated in the holy books. To you, your way, and to me, mine. All right. So, as we know, an element in the Christian Black Code, Article 22, we declare that slaves have no right to any kind of property, but that all that they acquire, either by their industry or by the ability of others, or by other means or title, which shall be the full property of their masters, and the children of said slaves, their fathers, mothers, their kindred, or other relation, either free or slave, shall have no pretensions or claim thereto. So bottom line, property can't own property. That's another reason why we must know the importance of a nation state, declaration of nationality, and how that translates to political status when it comes to the relationship with your property. Because remember, when you looked up status over the last 5 weeks, it determines your relationship with your estate. This is where that comes into play, right? Competent organizations of people with the same nationality making a claim, competent heirs to the estate, distinguished from people that are jurisdiction under the Christian Black codes. They can't own property. All this goes in hand because a person that's identified, a Black organization can't make certain claims that we're making. A Black organization, just because it's an organization, they can't convey property into trust on the principles that we're speaking of. It will still be subjected to the probate court. So mortgage and estate, and mortgage is an estate created by a conveyance, absolutely in its form, but intended to secure the performance of some acts, such as the payment of money and the like, by the grantor or some other person, and to become void if the act is performed agreeably to the terms prescribed at the time of making such conveyance. So an estate is created. So look at the definition of mortgage. An estate is created. That's why it's called a deed of, it's called a deed of trust. But the thing is, the person that thinks they're the borrower is really the grantor. And like we've been going over the last couple of weeks, we now know that the grantor is the creator of the trust, and they think they're the borrower. The trustee, who's just carrying out the grantor's bidding, is the bank. The beneficiary, like we say, is typically some affiliate of the bank, the title insurance company, or something like that. So when we spot that with a competent mind, we'll be like, oh, that's a violation of trust law. And they work for me. If I'm the grantor, that's why the definition of mortgage said an estate created by conveyance. See, the person by him not knowing, if you don't know you're the grantor and you think you're the borrower, you created a state and then abandoned it. And you agreed that if I miss a payment, that this bank can have my asset, my estate. All right. So it's a lien, right? It's a mere lien. Case law to support that. Look, a transfer of property passing conditionally as security for a debt. So it's your property and you're passing it with conditions. What are those conditions? If I miss a payment, you can put this thing in foreclosure. Right? It's telling you in the definition. Secured by a pledge of land. You're pledging your land. You're telling the bank, I'm gonna give you my land, my house, if I miss a payment. So the pledging of land is what? Legal ownership vested in the creditor, but of which in equity the debtor and those claiming under him remain the actual owners. So you the creditor, but you gave the debtor your stuff. Oh, of course, until you blow the whistle and they get debarred by judicial sentence. And that's the whole point of knowing these laws, these laws. And it's like it's tons of laws that they're violating. We're just going over the summary of how you should look at a mortgage so you can spot the fraud when you start, as we later in the game start putting stuff in trust and putting, assisting our people that are in foreclosure, in a system and principles that are sound. So another definition of mortgage, still in law, the foregoing definitions are applicable to the common law conception of a mortgage, but in many states in modern time, it is regarded as a mere lien and not as creating a title or estate. Case law to support. It's not title to an estate. It's not title or estate. A mortgage does not represent ownership. It just represents there's a lien that took place. It is a pledge or security of particular property for the payment of a debt or the performance of some other obligation, whatever form the transaction may take, but is not now regarded as conveyance in effect, though it may be cast in the form of a conveyance. Chattel mortgage, mortgage of goods, chattels. All these things are associated with the mortgage. So a promissory note is exactly what it sounds like. It's a promise written down, thus in the form of a note, like when you pass notes in high school. This is where the four-corner rule comes into play. As opposed to filing a claim in court based on a verbal promise, which without video or video evidence would be difficult to prove, it becomes easier for everyone to just write things down. This written expression of thought is also where we get the phrase expressed trust. Four-corner rule simply means any civil litigation based on contracts will not be based on what litigants say about the contractual agreement as far as terms and conditions, but solely and strictly based on the written agreement, the contract itself. This is based in equity, of course, with other pre-imposed conditions, such as full disclosure, honor, mental status, equal valuable exchange, and consent, right? These are all elements of contract law when you study contract law. There's things that make a contract valid and invalid. And we must know what those things are. The most famous one is we know we can't contract with a minor, or a minor can't enter into a contract. We know it needs to be what they call consideration in contract law, which means something of value must have been given. So these are elements that we need to know in contract law, so we can spot a fraud when we're dealing in the future. You might want to challenge a bank. We know property can't own property. We know banks can't own property. So we got to figure out who the CEO of this bank is. That's saying they own the property, and go from there. And then it's the clear, we're starting to unwind the yawn. Things start becoming clear on your position and your claim on what it is. So the word mortgage etymologically means dead pledge. The mortgage is merely a lien on the house, which the mortgage contract / promissory note states that if the amount allegedly loaned is not paid in full based on a default, then the house is taken as collateral. Thus, the home is the collateral interest in the mortgage contract. All mortgages are linear contracts. And why am I saying linear? Or why is it, what is linear? If you knew contract law, that would stand out to you like, oh, that's what's a violation of contract law. You can't have a linear contract. It can't just be where it's 4 people involved in the contract, but it's only one signature. It needs to be 4 signatures. This is contract law 101. It can't be a unilateral contract, which means one-sided. So this is what I mean by what we say getting competent. As the more we want to be competent in all areas of law. It's a lot of areas. You got contract law, trust law, estate law. Of course, we know jurisprudence, but it don't stop. And then once the body politic is competent, where individually we all sharp, we take it to another level. Just by our creativity of just being around each other and operating as a body. The alleged loaning agency creditor never loaned you anything of actual value, which makes the entire deed action void ab initio. And that's what I mean by the consideration. Like in contract law, it must be consideration. They never gave you nothing. So the house was 800,000. You go into the bank and you saying, I need 800,000 so I can get this house. The bank never gave you the briefcase full of the money. You never saw nothing tangible. But since credit is an abstract noun, not physical, and you agreed that they are the creditor, not the lender, they contractually don't have to give you anything. Since you do not challenge this via an adverse claim and agree via your ignorant tacit compliance or acquiescence, and trust that these people are going to be honest with you simply because they have a suit and a smile on their face, you become their chattel by consent, agreement, and your own ignorant free will. Definition of ignorant. Any questions before I move on? Any statements? Anything on any level?
As well.
Oh, Magram L. I'm not quite sure who that is. I want to greet you. Magram L.
It's this is Amina.
Oh,
Amina L.
Islam. Peace and love. Peace and love. Hope all is well. So, law definition of ignorant. Late 14th century, lacking wisdom or knowledge, unaware. Lacking wisdom, unaware. Not knowing. Not paying attention. All right. So we don't want to be in that space because that determines your political status. If you're ignorant in law, how to run government, trust law, contract law, you don't know how to do these things, estate planning, you're deemed ward of the state. Organization is a must. Allegiance is a must. We got to stay consistent. This is for life. It's not like we're not joining something. It's not it's for life. It's nationhood. We want to continue to politic on these things for life and make this thing grow. bring like-minded people to the table, wake them up, give them the light. Feudal law. All modern day mortgages and deeds of trust as they relate to mortgages and other loans or promissory notes, such as car loans, student loans, and the like, are all based on feudal law. Feudalism was a combination of legal, economic, military, and cultural force that was established by the papacy and the Christian monarchs during their crusades and inquisition in medieval Europe between the 9th and 15th centuries against the Moors. This period is also known as the Reconquista. The Reconquista is a time period in history when Europeans began to reconquer lands and territories previously owned by Moors. Broadly defined, it was a way of structuring society around relationships that were derived from the holding of land in exchange for service or slave labor or chattel slavery. The money secured via feudal systems was then used to fund their armies to continue their wars against Moors. The statutes and codes were enforced by military or police power. And if simple rules were not followed, you would be thrown in prison. Feudal law is derived from the Frankish term chattel or chattel. My beneficiary over there going crazy. He's upset. He upset because of the feudal law. You talking about feudal law? The heir get hit. You feel me? Hey, you can't be in the feudal law. We don't want to be chattel. This meaning was then applied to people and land itself, in which land was used to pay for fealty, such as to a vassal. Thus, the old word fios, meaning movable property, i.e. the person, changing little by little to fios, meaning the exact opposite, the person's land and property. In short, monarchs, in our case, the United States Corporation, will position themselves as your parent, or in Latin, parens patriae, as is known in law, allow you to live while claiming to protect you. That's where the whole ward of the state. And you would in turn pledge. That's where you get gage, or you get the mortgage, dead, that's what mortgage is, a dead pledge. Property, your life, livelihood, lands to them. Before a lord could grant a fief to someone, he had to make that person a vassal property, i.e. chattel property or slavery, for a chattel mortgage. Islam to the brother too, Brother Kazim. Peace and love. So this was done at a formal and symbolic ceremony called a condemnation ceremony. In modern times, it's your U.S. citizenship / birth certificate. This ceremony was composed of the two-part act of homage and oath of fealty. During homage, the lord or the master or the creditor, the vassal, the slave, and the debtor enter into a contract in which the vassal slave promised, promissory note, to fight for the lord at his command or draft. Willis, the lord, agreed to protect the vassal from external forces for the fear of terrorism, promoted by the U.S. and the media. Fealty comes from the Latin fidelis and denotes the fidelity owed by a vassal to his feudal lord. Right. So we're dealing with the mortgage. We're dealing with instruments of fealty. You pledging your lands. And in modern day time, we just doing it for lack of knowledge. That's the bottom, we just showing this historical connection of where this comes from. This principle where we get the word escheat and these things. Bottom line is, if you as a people, of us as a people, are not competent to inherit, then you're deemed ward of the state and you're gonna be under a feudal law jurisdiction. Right. On the other side of the spectrum, it's a body of Moors that are competent. And we clearly, because remember, back to these Asians, they came out here in the 70s. It's third generation, fourth generation that we're seeing wealth. Why am I saying it like that? Because it always has to be a point where it's boots on the ground. Initially, we got to build it up. That's the whole point of dues. That's the whole point of being competent, because we get a couple people that's competent in grant writing. We can write down what we about as a body and be like, you know what? 100,000, we can do this. This is our plan when we get it. It's angel investors or i.e. other nationalities of people that will assist us if we come with a competent plan and show that what we've been doing over the months and years. Like, oh, okay, y'all generated this, so y'all been staying solid this long. Oh, okay, y'all got some allegiance. Okay, y'all for real. That's, all the levels of what we're dealing with. When we talk about we statesmen, ambassadors, we have an allegiance to what? Expansion, establishing bonds, creating customs with each other, habits and customs. Transitioning to fee simple or fee simple absolute is an estate in land, an apparent or colored but not absolute form of free ownership, because we know a lot of your title. It is a way that real estate and land may be owned in feudal law countries, masquerading as common law, and is the highest possible ownership interest allowed to slaves that can be held in real property. The rights of the fee simple owner are limited by government powers of taxation, compulsory purchase, police power, and escheat. And it can also be limited further by certain encumbrances or conditions in the deed, such as, for example, a condition that required the land to be used as a public park, with a reversion interest in the grantor if the condition fails. This also applies to quote-unquote homeowners not being allowed to use their property to operate or run a business, inclusive of the forced occupation of your physical body to be in the property. The feudal law system, which fee simple is based in, first appeared in the Christian Black Codes of 1724 against the denationalized Moors. Sticking to a Reconquista laws, slave chattel property could not own property. All that they acquired could never be in their or their slave, could not own property, and all that they acquired could never be theirs. And their slave master had the last say in any and all they did. This is why when you have a mortgage, you cannot sell the home without them being involved, nor can you transfer the estate to your children without their permission via probate or other third party regulated by them, just as in the time of the Inquisition. Any questions, statements? I would imagine Brother Randolph, and I'm not sure who else, that this will be a new space for. Essentially, once again, to reiterate, because a couple new people came in. We want to get competent in trust law, contract law. We want to be active members in the body. We want to be competent for the reason of eloquently waking our people up. We want to be consistent in our dealings. We want to be consistent in dues. We want to be consistent with each other. just to create a brotherhood and sisterhood, just in general. You want to, you know, of course, we got our official hat. We want to get this thing, get efficiency down, get organization down, get discipline and structure down. But we also want to have a brotherhood and a sisterhood, and build a rapport with each other and get those bonds of affection, like it said in the Quran. So once these things are downloaded, it's gonna come to a point where we want to start making claims on property, putting things in trust. But the prerequisites is more important. What do I mean by prerequisites? What I just said right now, those bonds of affection, getting competent. We got a track record. Oh, it's been about a year, and the same people still here. This expansion, there's some camaraderie. Okay, well, this body of morals, let's make a claim on some property. Now the divine law kicks in. The divinity gonna make that go smooth. And once again, we're manifestors. So we done built our treasury up because we projected we gonna make a claim. And based on this many members, we getting this much in. We're gonna have enough to get some solar panels for something we claim. Irrigation system. Maybe send a couple members to vocation school to be a farmer or something for some land that we about to get. We don't know how to farm. We need to hire some farmers or, send somebody that's been faithful in an organization, a vocation school to be a farmer. However the case, we're using our mind. This is nationhood. This is collective thinking. But when we do these things, we need to know how to make the claim. You know what I mean? Even in y'all simple family unit, the individual members might, got families. They need to know how to establish a trust for themselves, on their personal level. Even though we know the organization is a trust as well. But y'all need to know how to be competent to do that. You know what I mean? So the whole point of the organization is to be competent on these things. If there's any gray areas, the whole point is to make it known what those gray areas are, so we can be clear and be fluid, operational, and stay locked in. Like, what are we doing, right? What's the vision? Keep in mind, it's for life. There's no expiration date on this. It's either you have allegiance or you stop having allegiance. That's the bottom line. But it's not like a temporary thing here. So keep that in mind. So there's no rush. I mean, it's a rush in the sense that it's things we can be doing if we're taking ourselves serious. We can achieve things and throw out dates out there and be like, okay, at this pace, and take a scientific approach. But at the same time, just keep in mind that it's still for life. You know what I mean? We just want to keep our mind working, making sure we're progressive. Right. I think I'm gonna transfer to escrow. The escrow account is simply an apparent but not actual uninterested third party who you give your monthly payment to, then cut, is taken for the crown, and the rest goes to the alleged lender. This is all done in a feigned attempt to display equity and fairness. It is merely a way to keep account of their profit. In other words, it's them managing their fiefs to ensure that each vassal or Slav or mortgage holder is paying their fealty to the homage to the crown for allowing them to live and protect them, similar to cattle or cows. Cows pay homage or fealty to the farmer in the form of milk for the farmer's protection against predators and allowing them to live. This is why it's called chattel mortgages. The house is the farm, and you are the cow. Your energy in the form of paper money is your homage, your fealty to the federal U.S. government to protect you via their police and their military. All while in actuality, it's the Inquisition, and they are domestic terrorists. Well,
Oh, breakdown.
I'll say that again.
That's pretty cool breakdown right there. Like you were the house is the cow, and you were the captain.
Crazy, yeah.
Very Tarian. Then I yield another shout out.
It's crazy. I had the same thing in my mind. I was like, damn. While I was reading that, I'm like, it's cold right here. This was a definition of domestic terrorism. It means activities involves acts dangerous to human life that are a violation of the criminal laws of the United States or of any state, appear to intend to intimidate or coerce a civilian population. And I wanted to talk about civilian too, because I know when most people come into this info, they look at this like the word citizen and civilian is like bad. When you know what these words mean, you'll see that once again, like we went over the last couple of weeks, a citizen is an active member of a nation state, right? So you got nation states distinguished from corporate states. So you can be a citizen of a nation state. We're just not citizens of a corporate state, all right? So a civilian is a citizen of an active member of a community that they have allegiance to, all right? So that's context. So a definition of domestic terrorism is to intimidate or coerce a civilian population to influence the policy of a government by intimidation or coercion, or to affect the conduct of a government by mass destruction, assassination, or kidnapping, and occur primarily within the territorial jurisdiction of the United States. So when we know that is the definition of domestic terrorism, we know that they can't use that word in the context of somebody else outside, like Middle East or whatever, like they're gonna come bomb us like they did with the 9/11 thing. When in fact, they are the domestic terrorists because locally, they are genociding our people through the education system, the images that they show in movies, attempted book burnings, separation of our people, etc. So what is a loan? This is where most of the confusion is derived, simply because there are assumptions made on our behalf. In their mind, it is assumed that we are the vassal owing allegiance to the crown. In our mind, it is assumed that the agent of the bank is honest, right? We think the agent of the bank is an honest person interested in helping us become a first homeowner. In other cases, multiple homeowner. It is also assumed that the word own means the acquisition of property in which you are vested the absolute ownership power and authority over the home. We compare it to when we purchase items from the store, such as a TV. We know once we have the receipt to the TV, we are the true owner. And no one can report it stolen or make a claim thereto because we have the receipt. We assume this applies to the mortgage. Indeed as well, it does not. What we don't see is that we are listed as mortgagor, and the bank or other agency is listed as the lender. But what did they lend you? What did they give you? When, what date did they give it to you? Do they have proof of the transfer? That they did in fact give you anything of value? Under what context or laws were the items or things of value given to you? We assume that just because they wrote a monetary value on a piece of paper and handed us keys, that the monetary amount was given to us. It never was. Therefore, the bank or alleged loaner still owes you and is in default. because they agreed to give you something. Did you ever get it? They simply created credit on their books and transferred it, meaning they don't have money. They wrote a number on the paper and said they now had that amount and gave it to you. Then they had you sign it and agree to it as if they truly gave you money. That's the part. You signed and agreed to it. That's the big part that must be comprehended. But keep in mind, it's not over, because once you come into the knowledge of trust law, estate law, declare your nationality, you can undo this stuff. Why? Because you know contract law, and a minor can't enter into a contract. And most of our people were minors when they entered into the contract. So they can undo it once they wake up. So it's not binding. You're not stuck. The mortgage itself is to secure the payment to a loan. But what loan if they never handed you money? Additionally, why secure your house as collateral if they never loaned you anything? Which means you were not the debtor. Because to be a debtor, that means somebody gave you some money. So now you promise to pay the money back. But you first got to get the money. The reason we keep stressing it in this like elementary way is to help you see concepts and principles of the fraud. It is also assumed that the bank owned the property and had the right to sell it to you. Yet, they know you're the actual owner of the land. Hence, you're listed the mortgager. Now, keep in mind, that's why I keep stressing, if you go to the county clerk record right now on any mortgage and look what it's called a deed of trust. I don't care what corporate state it's in. Another element that's going to be the same is the fact that the borrower is going to be in parentheses. Next to that, they're going to be called the grantor, quote unquote, the borrower. If you know trust law, you know the grantor created the trust. If you know trust law, you know the trustee works for the grantor. Who's the trustee on these deed of trusts? The bank or the property management? All right, so that's just where you want to have your mind. Let me see. All right, so the closure. I'm sorry, I got one more paragraph before the closure. Additionally, why secure your house? Once again, if you never loan anything, the only solution is adverse possession via adverse claim, pursuant to the rights of indigenous people. So we should all know about the rights of indigenous people in this group, right? And that's why it's important to know, once again, full faith and credit, like we said earlier. If you can go to multiple city halls, LA, Chicago, Texas, and it talks about Moorish Americans or Aboriginal and Indigenous to North, Central, and South America, and that they're a party to the rights of indigenous people. And then you open up the rights of indigenous people. And you see you got the right to your land and resources. Now you're going to see why you're going to put that as an element in your claim or our claim, because when you adverse possess or make claims on property as a collective of Moors versus individual, it's different. It's different. It's different. It's a lot different. So the closure. The closure of a mortgage occurs the moment you sign the contract, meaning the negotiations are no longer open. They are closed or final. Therefore, there can be no foreclosure. So that's pretty simple. Like, it's always a closing. If whoever never been in a mortgage scenario or I got family members that got mortgages, you're going to see that they go through a process called the closing. Right. So if there's a closure, then there can't be a foreclosure because it's already done. Back to the concept of if you pay for something and got a receipt, I'll pay for it. Right. It's over. The for means before. Thus, you cannot do something before it happened and after it happened. So transition into allodial title in the Constitution. Any statements, questions, just things you wanted to discuss in general. Allodial title in the Constitution. So allodial title constitutes ownership of an estate, lands, buildings, fixtures, etc., that is independent of any superior landlord. Allodial title is related to the concept of land held in allodium, or ownership or land ownership by occupancy and defense of land. Highlighting defense of land. This concept is rooted in your right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Compare this to feudal fee, homage system to a monarchy. In a feudal system, you owe the crown. In the allodial common law, republic, communist, socialist, constitutional system, you only owe what it costs to maintain your property. Estate tax doesn't apply to your home if you hold it in allodium, meaning every man and child in the house is armed to the teeth, and you will not allow anyone or anything to come into that house, estate, or do anything without their permission. So, in context, this is not this is like what happens naturally. Once any type of people start developing like wealth, you got businesses, if you got children, women, schools that you got to protect, this becomes natural. In fact, we have an ecosystem to pay these people. We can pay our muftis. We can pay different people to do X, Y, Z because we developed a ecosystem which first started off as dues or paying taxes, and it got built up to something. Now we can have an ecosystem where we can start putting our people on payroll. Because once again, another problem is our people have 9-to-5s, which makes their time limited and they're tired when they get off work. They don't really have a mental space maybe to study or be as active as they could be or whatever the case may be. So that's the whole thing of plotting and planning as well, because we can wing one body at a time off where we can pay them X, Y, Z. And now their time is free. They doing something for the nation versus something for a foreigner, still getting paid the same. So once we got the ability to do that, we take it to another level. And all this is tied in to making claims. Because when we saying the body's making the claim, that's what the body was doing before the claim was made. We had allegiance with each other. We built up something, a camaraderie. We built up economics. We maybe even had some little baby businesses, like whatever, that we got created. Right. But then the divine, but once we are, linked up like that, showing and proving, and then we make claims like this, divine law gonna kick in. I think everybody in this group. I do like this definition though. So nationalize. Definition of nationalize. So it's an action. So, you declare your nationality. And then once it's a group of people in this concentrated area have done the same, and it's their land, they put stuff in trust. And once again, most people might know about the Cuba situation. That's what happened in Cuba, where the United States was over there and they had interest in their businesses. And then one day, the Cubans said, you know what? We from here, they foreigners. They all stuck together and they nationalized the rice. They nationalized all their natural resources. This wasn't 1,800 years ago. This was like recently. I mean, it's a court case. I think it's Sabito versus the Republic of Cuba or something like that. And that was the court case where it was declared like the United States had no interest over here. So what am I getting at? This is old news. Nothing. These are new concepts, right? So to nationalize, to transfer a branch of industry or commerce from private to state ownership or control, make distinctly national, give a national character to. So hold on. Now, the definition of nationality, that character and quality. So when we nationalize land, we giving it the character of the people. So the jurisdiction of the people that got that land, whatever they do with it, it's going to reflect the character of the nationality, right? It's the interest of the people. It's for the people. Or of course, if it's in a small family trust, it's for the interest of that family. But once again, we're talking about nation state as a people, community trust. We the people. That's all that means. That phrase, we the people, that means the people got together, stayed silent, made elections, people doing their job, and it's expansion. So an estate is everything comprising the net worth of an individual, including all land, the real estate, possessions, financial securities, cash, and other assets that the individual owns or has a controlling interest in. This connection, part and parcel, is why when you sign a mortgage pursuant to feudal law, you pledge your life to the crown, as your estate is everything you own, acquire, and do. So here's an example of a writ. Everybody in here is familiar with a writ, I would imagine. Is anybody in here not familiar with what a writ is? Okay. So here's an example of a writ that will be addressed to typically a bank. Insert the bank name. This don't have to be exactly like this. This is just a ballpark, way in which you can construct an affidavit to get your position across. Typically, people come across this information after they didn't got to the contract, so they don't have a straw name, right? All right, X relation. Put the appellation. Right, so in an organizational case, it'll be Khalifa Society. If it's a family, small unit, you just enter the name of whatever that is, with the name of the estate, the latitude, longitude with the land that you're claiming. Because we know the street names aren't locations. We want to claim the earth. The alleged loan number that you challenging, the FHA number. FHA is just the housing authority or whatnot. Brother Trey, peace and love.
Peace and love, King. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Peace and love, brother. So here's an example. So dear blank, in order to come to a peaceful resolution in regards to any alleged foreclosure, eviction notices, or payment owed, I am exercising my constitutional and contractual rights to discovery on this matter. It must be fully disclosed that I am an Aboriginal and Indigenous Moorish American, distinguished from and not to be held in surety for whatever the straw is. I am the natural person who currently inhabits and is occupying the living quarters corporately referred to as whatever that is. Land, parcel ID, geographical location. I have received mailing communications from your agency regarding the alleged loan. Please mail to me the following certified and verified official copies of loan-related documents and answer to the following questions so that I may make a physical inspection to said documents and answers to verify whether or not you or your agency has valid claim or interest in my ancestral estate. 1. Produce original promissory note, front and back, associated with the loan from your agency, entity, persons to the borrower. 2. Produce any aligned bill of exchange or promissory note, front and back, complete with the affixations or allocations attached to the borrower promissory note and endorsements. So basically saying if the loan was passed on, so Chase had the loan, but they passed the loan to Wells Fargo. So now you're making payments to Wells Fargo. You want to see that exchange on how that took place. Produce all bookkeeping journals, entries associated with the loan to the borrower. Produce the deed of trust associated with the loan to the borrower. Clearly identify who the creditor or grantor is and the debtor. See, when you're talking like this, you're telling them who's, because what's going to happen is, because it's on the document. What's happening is people are so happy to get the house, they're just not reading. They're like, oh, they just signing stuff. But they are telling you what they're doing to you. And mark my words, go to any county clerk and look at the deed of trust. It's going to say the borrower is the grantor. I'm not making this up. That is a trust document, right? So once you start asking the bank, who's the grantor? And any person I know, any little bit of trust knows that, oh, that's the person that creates the estate, right? So that's why this line of questioning is like this, because it's going to go to another level. They got to respond to this. And when they do respond, it's going to show that, oh, it was you. Who was the grantor? Oh, it was you. Oh, so you work for me. That's where we're going with this. Produce the account number from which the money came to fund the check given to the borrower. Produce verification. I got something in the chat. Let me see. Oh yeah, Slime. Produce the verification that the borrower's promissory note was a gift or dodonis to the lender from the borrower. Produce the name and address to the current holder of the borrower's promissory note. Produce the name and address of the lender's CPA and auditor for the period covering execution. So you pretty much asking for a bond. You asking for these people bonds now. Produce a copy of their legal authority and bond number to do business in the state of wherever. Produce the bill of particulars and or receipt that proves that the loan was in fact lawful money, i.e. gold, silver, coin, or anything of value. Because remember, you didn't get nothing. So if you didn't get nothing, that means the contract wasn't satisfied, because the whole thing was you needed a loan to get the house. You never got the loan. So how are they saying you owe them in a foreclosure if you never received nothing? 11, clarify whether or not you or your agency is asking for gold or silver coin as payment of this alleged debt or private commercial paper. Because the reason that question is asked like that, because that's a whole nother measure now. We was here the last couple of weeks when we're dealing with their own code to talk about, I think, Title 28, United States Code, is dealing with Federal Reserve notes or obligations of the United States. And once again, if it's a nation state making a claim on some property, we're clearly not federal employees and we clearly not U.S. citizens. So that's why we're going down that road. Because if they're asking us for Federal Reserve notes, oh, that got nothing to do with us. You know what I'm saying? And if they're asking for gold and silver, then once again, they got to prove that they gave us something of value. So it's a trap. Who is listed the mortgager? What was the original debt owed before the securing of the mortgage? I.e. the pledging of the estate as collateral. You want to know these things. What exactly is being borrowed? Remember, you're the borrower. So you're asking them, what exactly did I borrow from you or your agency? If whoever the straw is listed as the mortgager, i.e. the holder of the title of the property, what exactly is being borrowed from you or your agency? Does the word foreclosure mean before the closure? Is a closure the signing of an instrument or contract? Can a foreclosure be executed after the closure? Can corporation or artificial person own property or be the holder of any real instrument? What is your nationality? These are questions that you remember. This is an affidavit form. So once again, in law, they must rebut and answer all your questions. If you got 20 questions, they only respond to 5. They didn't answer nothing. And all that correspondence is going to go on the public record once you make a claim. Why is it going on the public record? To show that they defaulted. Is it not true in the congressional bill, House Resolution 5404, that the United States Congress admitted that the United States dollar lost 96% of its value? Therefore, any claim of lending is only worth 4%, subsequently challenging the equitable securitization of the home in question, as the value of the home far exceeds the value of any physical amount of USD. So you still didn't give me what I asked for. You didn't give me nothing. This period, you didn't get nothing, period. Is it not true that the United States Supreme Court said that Don E. Williams versus the IRS commissioner case that Federal Reserve notes are considered a conditional payment, meaning both parties must agree to the value thereof, and I cannot be forced to pay you in notes? So this is a case law. Don E. Williams versus IRS commissioner. It was already ruled upon that Federal Reserve notes are conditional payments. But we know they didn't even give you that. We just saying, because they're asking you for Federal Reserve notes, right? Keep that in mind. They didn't give you nothing, not even Federal Reserve notes, but they want that from you. So now, Donnie Williams already decided Federal Reserve notes is not payment, right? Is it not true that in order for a contract to be valid, there must be fair and sufficient consideration? That's what I just talked about earlier. Something to value. That's just contract law. Consideration in contract law world, something to value. But that's the lingo, consideration. Is it not true that consideration, according to various law dictionaries with supportive case law, means something which is of value in the eyes of the law? So it's not even something to value, it's something to value in the eyes of the law, the word consideration. Is it not true that due to congressional bill, House Resolution 5404, that Congress admitted that USD has no value in the eyes of the law? Is it not true that consideration also may be regarded as a thing of value by both parties? And this one right here is what everybody needs to dive into, is the Fair Debt Collection Practice Act. And it's even more fraud that you're going to spot from these people. Is it not true that the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act is a federal law found at 15 U.S.C. 1692 that regulates the behavior of collection agents, and you must therefore answer the discovery, lest ye be found liable in punishment to all subsequent in U.S.C. violation, and could be charged with estate embezzlement pursuant to 18 U.S.C. 153? The estate embezzlement is the thing that's gonna get them. Because once you, or like I said, that the organization is a trust, or if it's a family unit making claims, it's an estate that was created first, and you're saying you're conveying property into an estate. Now they gotta deal with you in a whole different light. Estate embezzlement. This is my good faith attempt to clear up any misrepresentations or confusion concerning this matter before taking any further actions. A failure of the aforementioned entity or representatives to respond within the allotted whatever amount of days of receipt of this writ of the nature of discovery will be deemed in dishonor of this notice and demand of disclosure. So that was an example of what a claim or an adverse claim looks like. And of course, there was more stuff that could have been put in there, could have been worded in a different light or whatnot, but that's pretty sound. Next week, what time? You know what? I'm gonna run these definitions down and I'll open the floor up. All right, so these definitions are supported by case law as well. Money. And keep this in mind. This is all for context of what we're talking about, dealing with trust, dealing with contracts, dealing with spotting a fraud, etc. So in usual and ordinary exception, it means gold, silver, or paper money used as circulating medium of exchange and does not embrace notes, bonds, evidences of debt, or other personal real estate. Lane versus Rayleigh. So that's the definition of money. Definition of a note. In a unilateral instrument, remember I said contract law, one of the elements was a contract can't be unilateral. So in the definition of a note, it pops it off. A unilateral instrument. So it's already a violation, right? Containing, so we're talking about this mortgage note, is a unilateral instrument containing an express and absolute promise of signer to pay to a specified person or order a bearer a definite time or a sum of money at a specific time. Treasury note. A note or bill issued by the Treasury Department by the authority of the United States government and circulating as money. So it's circulating as money, but it's a treasury note. And if it's a note, it's always a promissory note. And if it's always a promissory note, it's always a promise to pay. So it's not money. It's circulating as money. Promissory note, a promise or engagement in writing to pay a specified sum at a time therein limited or on demand or at sight to a person therein named or to his order. A written promise by one or more to pay another or order. Promise to pay. Contract. A promissory agreement between two or more persons that creates, modifies, or destroys a legal action. An agreement to do or not to do a particular thing. A deliberate engagement between competent parties upon a legal consideration. So highlighting competent parties makes the contract valid. All parties were competent. And keep stressing legal consideration. This is the law definition of contract. And notice how it's highlighting the consideration aspect. We just learned consideration is something of value. If there's nothing of value involved in the contracting, it wasn't a contract. Once again, consideration is not to be confounded with motive. Consideration means something which is of value in the eyes of the law, moving from the plaintiff, either a benefit to the plaintiff or to the detriment of the defendant. Nothing is consideration that is not regarded as such by both parties, right? Meeting of the mind. and price and consideration, through, though sometimes the same, are not always identical. So keep in mind this consideration. Legal consideration. One recognized or permitted by law as valid and lawful, as distinguished from such as are illegal or immoral. The term is also sometimes used as equivalent to good or sufficient consideration. So in this context, if the people agree, like most people agree to get Federal Reserve notes, even though we know Federal Reserve notes is a promise to pay. But if all parties agree, like, okay, I'll take that, then that's legal consideration. I think I'm stop right here with this. And open the floor for want to have a conversation. Just thoughts, any comments at all? Just how y'all doing in general.
I come into consideration. It'd be like in the NBA when they're like trading players. Like if I want a good center or something, be considerate of like the value of what I'm giving you. So don't give me a trash player for a good player. So it's like you go to a mortgage, you know, they give you the promise of something in your mind. You think you're getting land, the house. You're like, yeah, but in reality, you're getting a trash player, and they're getting this value, or it'd be the notes, but that helps them in their false financial gain. But that reminded me of that consideration, you know, which is happens all the time with the NBA on a lower level, but that made me think of that. With contracts too, because they got contracts on actual men, like, hey, I need 3 picks for the first round. It's like, and people bet on that like all day too.
Yeah.
Like the auction block of the auction block.
Right. Brother Robin Dickens Bay, man. How you feeling over there, man? Are you on mute? You on mute? Oh, there you go. Damn, I still can't hear you. The lips was moving. The mic was off. Nope. Let's see the lips moving. I guess you could just type it in the chat or something. But let me see. Brother Trey, how you feeling over there, man?
Feeling good, bro. I'm gonna need to see the playback because I had to jump in a little late, but yeah, towards this end part, you know, I'm familiar a bit with the with what you were going over. So, you know, I'm just over here reflecting, you know, how much is a blessing, you know, knowledge and things that have been set into place, and you know, getting our people to see these things and become familiar with them. So yeah, I'm just soaking it up on this last part, and I'm gonna need to watch the whole thing as well. Mhm.
Brother Devon Bay, how you feeling over there, man? I stepped away. Brother Brother Randolph.
Islam, my bad. I actually hit something on the screen, but one part that was, you know, an interesting part. It was more so when we were talking about the treaties and where it started, where he broke down about where the note part of like a grand sheik and rabbis and stuff. You know, I just seen where I was reading how a person could operate, and you know, just in general, I can't explain it right now. That's my bad on that. But it was just a very interesting part, just in a whole, you know, not like looking to like on some like a person would be doing something messed up, but just the business aspect of it.
Right.
Because you know, everything's about business, you know.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah, man.
Mhm.
Brother Kasim, how you feeling over there, man?
Salam, Moz.
Mom.
Yeah, I'm tapping in a little late. I got my son with me. I'm back on the East Coast too.
Mm.
So, I'm just handling business. That's why I couldn't tap in last 2 weeks. I was traveling and stuff. But definitely a great topic. I missed most of it, but I feel like it was a topic about loans and
Yeah.
taking loans from the government. It was definitely a good insight behind it because I feel like all the credit unions that the government owns are basically scam banks anyway. That's just my take on it. I don't want to really, dive into it, but that's my take on it.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I'll send everybody the recording as well in a couple hours. Whoever came in a little late. Brother Randolph. Brother Randolph, how you feeling over there, man?
Everything's good. Just trying to, ingest all this stuff, all this information.
Anything stood out, anything stood out to you?
uh, I mean, kind of all of it, but I would probably say the Fair Credit Reporting Act. I've kind of actually been trying to read up on that, and the Truth in Lending Act and Equal Opportunity Act and all that stuff like that. So it kind of all plays a part in like how much fraud they've been doing and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, just approach it like a tarot reading, man. Whatever gravitates towards you, just dive into it, man. Because if you can get that mastered of what all that entails and the truth in lending situation, you're gonna be that much more ready, to spot the fraud in these mortgages. You know what I mean? So that's a good thing, man. That gravitated to your spirit like that. Benjamin Bay, man. How you feeling over there, man? Or did I already did I hit you first? Did I already hit you, Benjamin Bay? Did I already ask you? Did you already give a testimony? All right. He might have did. I'm pretty sure he did.
Yeah, I did. I was speaking the racial part, and I was like, of like trading in the NBA. Have consideration for the value player that I'm giving you. Value, I give you some value. Don't give me a trash player. And with the mortgage, we go and think we're getting, something of value, quote unquote, land or a house, but it's already ours. But through there, we think that they're giving us something valuable, which goes to the linear contract, kind of like ping pong into everything else. Once they got you, like, okay, they don't know I'm giving trash, dude. Okay, cool. Here's some trash. We'll take the best player you got.
Right. No, my bad. I got that Truth in Lending Act had me on one. But oh yeah, Brother Robbins Dickens Bay. Peace and love, man. I know you said you gotta do your thing. But I appreciate you your energy, man. And like I said, for life, man. We here, man. But I hope you have a beautiful day, man. All right, so I'm gonna close out on chapter 8 of the Quran. Yahshua reveals to the people of their sinful ways. In all the cities of Arisa, Jesus taught, At Katat, by the riverside, he taught, and thousands of the people followed him. One day, a car of Jagannath was hauled along by scores of frenzied men, and Yahshua said, "Behold, a form without a spirit passes by, a body with no soul, a temple with no altar fires. This car of Krishna is an empty thing, for Krishna is not there." Whoever doesn't know Krishna is a Hindu deity dealing with the activation of the Christ or the pioneer. This car is but an idol of people drunk on wine and carnal things. Allah lives not in the noise of tongues. There is no way to him from any idol shrine. Allah's meeting place with man is in the heart, and in a small voice he speaks. And he who hears is still. And all the people said, "Teach us how the Holy One who speaks within the heart, Allah, of the still small voice." And Yahshua said, "The holy breath," which we should know is truth, we were covering the last couple of weeks. "The holy breath cannot be seen with the mortal eyes, nor can men see the spirits of the Holy One. But in their image man was made, and he who looks into the face of man looks at the image of the Allah who speaks within him. And when man honors man, he honors Allah. And what man does for man, he does for Allah. And you must bear in mind that when man harms in thought or word or deed another man, he does a wrong to Allah. If you would serve the Allah who speaks within the heart, you just serve your near to kin or near of kin, and those that are no kin, the stranger at your gates, the foe who seeks to harm you. Assist the poor and help the weak. Do harm to none and covet not what is not yours. Then with your tongue the Holy One will speak, and he will smile behind your tears, will light your countenance with joy, and fill your hearts with peace. And then the people ask, to whom shall we bring gifts? Where shall we offer sacrifice? And Yahshua said, our Father Allah asks not for needless waste of plant or grain or dove of lamb. That which you burn on any shrine, you throw away. No blessings can attend the one who takes the food from hungry mouths to be destroyed by fire. When you would offer a sacrifice unto Allah, just take your gift of grain or meat and lay it on the table of the poor. From it, an incense will arise to heaven, which will return to you with blessedness. Tear down your idols. They can hear you not. Turn all your sacrificial altars into fuel for the flames. Make your human hearts your altars, and burn your sacrifices with the fire of love. And all the people were entranced and would have worshiped Yahshua as a god. But Yahshua said, I am your brother man, just come to show the way to Allah. You shall not worship man. Praise Allah, the Holy One. So that was chapter 8 of the Holy Quran, a principle-based chapter on perspective. So when we go through, if I'm not mistaken, Leviticus, and it's all altars and people making, sacrificing animals. And that's not really what it's about. You wasting the food. It's really about like, the holy zeal that, your heart is not stone. You're a humanitarian. Your motivation is to be a humanitarian, help others, unify the people, do some good for humanity while you having this temporary physical experience in this form. Be a humanitarian, aspire to do great things. Let's build an empire, brick person by person, man. Our ancestor did it. Why not? We can create and do great things. And after all, we're only who our ancestors are, without doubt or contradiction. Any thoughts on this chapter? Any thoughts at all before we close out here? Questions? Highlights that happened this week? Any milestones achieved by anybody this week? Anything coming up in the future? Any great news? Nothing?
I like how at the end of it expressed no worship of a man. I liked that.
Yeah, man. Right, man. Like I said, I'm gonna open the floor. Any thoughts? I pretty much yielding the floor. That was my piece for the day. If anybody had any, like I said, thoughts, things they want to discuss on any type of level, let's chop it up. Okay. All right. Well, next Sunday, 11 o'clock, California time, we'll pick it back up. And peace and love to everybody. Hope everybody has a beautiful rest of their Sunday. And smile.